Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Golden Bachelorette. I'm convinced Chock Chapple introducing Joan Vassos to his Wichita friends proves they'll move to Kansas, not NYC. As speculation grows about the Golden Bachelorette stars Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple's living situation, there are emerging clues the couple is considering a permanent move to Wichita, Kansas. Joan and Chock were a perfect match when they met during Joan's run as the Golden Bachelorette. They both faced the daunting task of dating after loss. Joan's husband of 32 years passed away in 2021, while Chock's fiancé of 9 years passed in 2022. Joan and Chock discovered they could find love again while still holding on to the memories of those they lost. Chock and Joan ended the season with an engagement, but one obstacle remained. Joan lives in Maryland, while Chock lives in Wichita. Together, the couple decided to embrace the unconventional nature of their relationship and enjoy a long-distance romance. Joan and Chock agreed to split their time between their two homes, and they also planned to purchase a third home in New York City. However, their NYC dream seems to have stalled. And as Joan and Chock spend time in Wichita, I believe their plans are changing as they settle into life in the Midwest. During Joan and Chock's New Year's trip to Kansas, Chock pulled out all the stops to make Joan feel at home. On January 1, Chock shared photos from their trip, writing, "It's been a fun few days showing at Joan_Vassos around Wichita." Joan echoed Chock's enthusiasm about the trip, writing on her account, "Had the best time starting the new year in Kansas with a Chock Chapple. Headed back to see my kids and grandkids, but will miss my new friends in Wichita." Joan included a photo of herself, arm in arm with a group of women as they celebrated the new year. Joan also poked fun at Chock's massive sock collection during her trip to the Midwest, which Chock followed up with a post detailing his donation of the excess socks. While this seems like a minor change, it speaks to the influence Joan has on Chock's home. Chock is adapting his home and lifestyle to make Joan happy. There has been some speculation Joan and Chock's separate homes are a sign of their unwillingness to integrate one another into their lives, but it's now clear to me that Chock sees his home as a space they both share. A recent appearance on the Dear Shandy podcast gave more insight into Joan and Chock's habits as they discussed a shopping trip to Home Goods. Chock explained Joan convinced him to buy new throw pillows, filling 2 shopping carts with items for his king-size bed, as well as his guest room and son's room. This is another example of how Chock is allowing Joan to make herself at home in his space, which tells me they intend to spend plenty of time there in the future. Joan's post about her new bond with Chock's friends gives me faith that her future lies in Kansas. Joan is more likely to move to Kansas if she has a support network beyond Chock. Chock is committed to his work as an insurance executive, meaning he can't devote 100% of his attention to Joan when she's in town. Joan must have connections in the city, which she established during her January visit. Joan's relationship with Chock's friends proves how much effort he's putting into making her comfortable. It suggests their plans for Wichita are long-term. I don't think Chock would be encouraging Joan to form relationships with his friends if they never spent time together again. He wants her to build connections in Wichita that will help her adjust to being away from home. This is a sign Joan and Chock are leaning towards establishing roots together in Kansas. Chock secured his place in Joan's heart in the Golden Bachelorette Season 1 finale when he presented her with a key that symbolized their future home in New York City. While Joan and Chock have always dreamed of living in New York, they lack a close social network there. Joan's loved ones are in Maryland, while Chock's friends and business are in Kansas. They have little connection to NYC other than their dreams, and I'm convinced that's not a good enough reason for a permanent move. But living in Kansas will give her Chock's existing social circle, providing her with a foundation for building lasting connections. Joan will likely have a hard time leaving her friends and family in Maryland behind, but her pain will be lessened if she has a new group to welcome her. While she now has that in Kansas, she doesn't have it in NYC. If Joan and Chock buy a home in New York City, it's likely to be a romantic retreat rather than a full-time home. Joan and Chock are too established in their lives to leave everything behind and start over. If they decide to make one location their home base, I believe Kansas makes the most sense. Chock can continue to grow his business, while Joan has proven she can blend seamlessly into his friend group. Joan and Chock had big dreams of jet-setting between 3 locations, but it's not sustainable. I'm positive it's only a matter of time before they grow tired of the constant travel. Spending so much time apart can be hard on a relationship, and the only solution is for Joan and Chock to agree on a home base. I'm convinced Joan and Chock's posts are setting the stage for a permanent move to Wichita. He's going out of his way to make sure she feels at ease in his home, which suggests she'll be spending a lot of time there soon. As Joan and Chock settle into life after the Golden Bachelorette and plan their wedding, they're likely looking for a more stable living arrangement. Joan loves Chock with all her heart, which is proof she'll follow him anywhere he goes. From the very beginning of the Golden Bachelorette, it was clear that Chock Chapple wasn't just another suitor vying for Joan Vassos' heart. He was the dark horse, the quiet, confident cowboy with a soul full of stories and a heart anchored in the Midwest. And now, as hometowns loom closer, one major clue has convinced me that Chock isn't just in it for the romance. He's in it to build a future, not in the glitzy, fast-paced world of New York City where Joan envisioned herself, but in the steady, down-home comfort of Wichita, Kansas. Let's break it down. The power of Wichita friends. During a pivotal episode, Chock made a bold move. Instead of whisking Joan away for a generic candlelit dinner or a picturesque vineyard date, he brought her to meet his Wichita friends. And if you've been paying attention to the Golden Bachelorette, you know that meeting a contestant's close-knit inner circle isn't just about approval. It's about planting roots. This wasn't a fleeting, casual introduction. Chock wasn't just showing Joan where he came from. He was showing her where she could belong. The gathering was warm, intimate, and filled with easy laughter, the kind that only exists among people who have lived through decades together. More importantly, Joan wasn't just a guest. She was welcomed like family. Joan's NYC dream versus the Kansas reality. For weeks, Joan has spoken about how she sees her golden years in New York City, a place bustling with energy, opportunities, and most importantly, close to her daughter. But Chock's move suggests something different. He's subtly proving to Joan that she doesn't need a Manhattan high-rise to find fulfillment. She can have it in a cozy, sprawling home in Kansas, surrounded by a community that already adores her. It's a classic dilemma we've seen on the Bachelor franchise before. Do you follow love into the unknown, or do you stay true to the life you imagine for yourself? The difference here is that Chock isn't just asking Joan to consider moving. He's showing her why it's the right choice. And from the way Joan lit up during the evening, the way she leaned into Chock as his friends told stories about their decades of friendship, it's clear she's already picturing a future there. The significance of Chock's offer in past seasons: the men who bring their bachelor leads home often do so with the knowledge that their lives will eventually change if they win. They're prepared to leave behind their hometowns, pack up, and start fresh wherever their leading lady wants to settle. Chock, however, seems to be playing by a different rulebook. He isn't offering Joan a vague promise of "we'll figure it out." Instead, he's presenting her with a fully realized alternative, a life in Wichita, complete with friendships, traditions, and stability. He's not just telling her about his world, he's inviting her to step into it permanently. And it's working. Joan's body language says it all. If you rewatch the episode, pay close attention to Joan's reactions. At first, she seemed hesitant, perhaps wondering if this was just another check-the-box moment in the journey. But as the night progressed, she softened. She leaned in when Chock spoke. She laughed easily with his friends, and most telling of all, she kept reaching for his hand in a way that felt instinctual rather than performative. It's the kind of body language that screams comfort, the kind that says, "I can see myself here." The lack of a concrete NYC plan. For weeks, Joan has talked about her NYC dream. But have you noticed? There's been no real, tangible plan. She's never detailed where exactly she would live, how she'd build a new community, or what her day-to-day life would look like. It's always been painted in broad strokes, a fantasy more than a certainty.